Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my Dragonflight Alpha Affliction Warlock initial talent feedback video. So over this coming week, I want to be doing a video on each Warlock spec, AF, Demo, Destro, and I think AF is the spec that needs the most feedback and probably the most changes when it comes to a few things. So I wanted to start off there. Now, I will say, I think Warlock trees overall, looking at all three specs, spec trees and the class tree, are in a pretty good spot, and even a good portion of the AF tree is really solid. But there's a section of the tree more so based around the rating I guess talents that is it needs some serious help, and with it being early in alpha and there being a decent bit of time, I would assume, until release, I think it's a good time to get the ball rolling on all that. And I would assume, with it being, I guess, a week since we got initial Warlock talents, probably next week is the first time we're going to see changes coming out. There were some tuning of things today and all that, but I want to get the feedback rolling. And yeah, just get the ball rolling with that. So if you guys see any week orders or add-ons, profiles in the video you'd like to acquire, link down below my Twitch, where I stream 5 to 6 days a week. You can grab them all there for free if you want. Feel free to swing by asking questions anytime as well. Yeah, feel free to do so. Oh, and I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons before we get too far in the video, guys. Thank you for supporting on Patreon a million times. I really appreciate it, dudes. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. So with that being said, let's just jump right into the AF tree and a couple builds I've been playing sort of in dungeons and in, I guess, simulated raid scenarios on Alpha. So starting things off with the Mythic Plus AOE side of the Affliction tree, the one that I am a huge fan of. I like it a lot. This is the build we're playing. Now, we're not going into the class tree a whole lot once again. There's points of reference in the tree that, correspond to abilities over here. We'll talk about it, but for the most part, it's just over there, right? So Rapture number 1, whether you love it or hate it, it's there. We'll get into that in the video later on. Rapture being your first point here into UA, Seed of Corruption, so the seeds, and then Agonizing Corruption. Now, this is really cool because they've added some abilities both in Agonizing Corruption and by separating Wrath and Agony and AC that empower seed, and so the seeds. So Agonizing Corruption says Seed of Corruption's explosion increases the stat count of Agony by 2 on all targets hit. The cool thing is that seed with so is 3 seeds. So 3 seeds, 2 stacks per, it's 6 seeds, which is pretty strong when it comes to increasing Writhe stacks early on in the trash pack in Mythic Plus. Now, one of the cool things about this version of AF is that on top of that, you also have Vile Taint, which now applies Agony and Curse of Exhaustion to every mob hit on a 20-second cooldown. Every pack, I would assume, you're going to have your Agony spreader quickly. So you're going to precast a seed into a Vile Taint and probably another seed or two to stack those Agonies to max stacks with Writhe. It's really cool. Instead of having to run into a pack, precast your seed, then go Agony, 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 Agony. When the warriors and windwalkers are just spinning, doing crazy damage, and the Destrolock throwing random fires, you can actually open up like a real spec now. It feels really good. It's an awesome change. I love the way this build feels when I've been playing it. Bile Taint, like seed into Bile Taint, feels really, really strong. I love it. And the cool thing on top of that as well is that by taking Sacrilash's Dark Strike, every enemy that has a curse on it, Corruption ticks extend it by 2 seconds. So you precast your seed into a Vile Taint that applies Agony and Curse of Exhaustion up to 8 targets. So 8 of those enemies are just basically permanently slowed. That exhaustion will never drop as long as your Corruption doesn't. It won't even come close to it. It's a whopping 50% slow from exhaustion, or even 70 with Amplified Curse here applied to it. It's just huge. It's so strong. This synergy, I think, is being criminally underrated right now. But this is also the early stages of alpha. When Mythic Plus comes out later on and the actual Dragonflight's more polished, I think you're going to see a lot of talk about this version of AF. It's very, very strong. So we have this interaction here, obviously. Good seed, good Vile Taint, good Sacrilege, Dark Strike, Wrath and Agony, and AC/Siphon Life are separate now too, which is cool. You have the option of playing both AC and Writhe, which you do in Plus. Very solid. Soul Flame is back, which is really cool also. It is the iconic Legion ability, which is often overrated. Listen, it was really cool. I loved it back in the day when it came to Darkheart. I think it, what those globs, the blood things exploding, Arcway slimes exploding, taking Scorpion on the wall and just watching the whole room blow up was super cool. That was Soul Flame. But when it comes to actual relevant damage, it might not be necessarily as relevant, but it's cool. It's iconic, and I think it fits this version of AF really, really well. So past there, we put 2 points in Pandemic Invocation, which is a returning BFA ability from an Azerite trait. I'm not a huge fan of it, but when it comes to BFA versus now, in BFA it was an Azerite trait in a world of racking brilliance and cascading calamities, and even ID back then too, right? Where it wasn't a good choice. But it's in a different form this time, basically, because it's in a talent tree where it leads into like AC or leads into the Drain Soul, and your options aren't as limited. Well, I'm not taking it first pick at all. With a few points laying around in the early stages here, PI is fine. I'm not a huge fan of it. It probably won't do a whole lot in Mythic Plus, but at the same time, it's there. It's a bit of free single target, and I guess cleave damage if you want it. You grab it. Leading in the Drain Soul, obviously, which leads into Soul Tap. This ability is busted. Sack 5% of your Soul Leech Shield to gain a Soul Shard is very, very OP. It's probably going to be capped at some point to have like a cooldown on it, but it's very, very good. And leading into Harvester of Souls, each time Corruption deals damage, it has a chance to deal shadow damage. There you go. It's cool. Works well with AC and AoE and all that. Just a solid ability. So this part of the tree basically is answered. You have Sacrolash leading in the Dark Lair, which it's Dark Lair. It is what it is. I mean, it's not the best cooldown. Obviously, we'll get into that more later on in the feedback part of the video, but it's still there. I think you still want it in Mythic Plus, and it brings that semi-solid 2-minute damage profile, right? This leads into Wrath of Consumption here, which is your legendary ability. Corruption and Agony each grant Wrath of Consumption. More dot damage for half a minute. Very strong effect. And I mean, this build is pretty dot based too. You've got Writhe, you've got AC, you've got ways to spread them quickly. So Wrath is pretty strong here. It's a good ability even now in Shadowlands. And the fact that it's more dot based, also due to the fact that you can play Haunt and AoE your Haunt, further amplifies the value in Wrath of Consumption, which is very, very cool. Haunt leads into Seize Vitality, which leads into Haunted Soul, giving you a 20% damage increase on basically every target while your Haunt is active, which is, the majority of the time. So very, very cool synergy here, as you can see. And you finally round it out with 1 point in Soul Rot, which leads into Decaying Soul Satchel, which is the, Shadowlands Night Fae ability, which is pretty cool to have back. Now, I have seen some people going no points in Wrath, 1 point into Creeping Death. I think Creeping Death is terrible. Not very good. There's some other builds too, like trying to play the 2-piece, 4-piece, but this is the build that I want to start off initially playing. Now, Soul Flame is unfortunately bugged on alpha right now. Hopefully it changes soon. With that being said, this build's still a lot of fun and really, really cool in AoE. Let's take a look at it in combat and then talk a bit at the end of the video about some feedback that could be added to this build, because as cool as it is, there are some abilities like Entorium Plating and Wilfred's that are just terrible for this build. Okay, so Affliction AoE is really, really cool in Mythic Plus. We talked about it already. The synergy between like Vile Taint and so the Seeds with Agonizing Corruption, Perma Slows with Exhaustion from Vile Taint and Sacrolash. Soul Flame we can't even see here, unfortunately. The thing's dying here. It's still bugged on alpha, but it's very, very cool. So this build is a lot of fun. Precast your Seed when the tank's running in. You can precast a UA if you want. That's fine. Right into your Vile Taint and spread agonies and things. Cast a Haunt to actually pop the Seed and get it rolling. Go into a Soul Rot here, not a Rapture. Pop your Dark Lair. Look at our Agony stacks here. 11, 12, whatever. Seed, 18. There you go. And start spamming Raptures. Rapture, Rapture, add a Shards. Just Soul Tap some more Shards back. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4 for the road. Why not? Rapture a few more times. Look at our Agonies here. Look at our Vile Taint also. You can just like perma roll Agonies with this Vile Taint. You don't even need to refresh them manually. It feels so good. This build's a lot of fun in dungeons I played. You can cast your Rifts whenever you want. The perma slow, the 18 stack of Writhe and Agony, like off the bat with 2 Seed casts feels insane. AC Writhe feels good. Rapture spam feels good. Soul Tap feels pretty dang good. And also like the AoE Haunt from Haunted Soul is going to be a lot of dot damage. You can't even see Soul Flame here. You can't even see Wrath Consumption here. This build feels really, really good. In Mythic Plus, it's not out yet, but I would expect this build to be pretty dang competitive, barring just being tremendously undertuned. The toolkit's there. Just gotta wait and see if the damage is there. So when it comes to, like I said, the AoE build of Affliction, you saw it in combat. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. The synergy is there between Vile Taint when you have actual Agonizing Corruption, so the Seed spam, stacking your Agonies fast with Writhe. The build feels good. The build is there, and we can't even see the effect of Soul Flame and things. You have your AoE Haunt, you have Wrath Consumption. It's solid. Now, like I mentioned before, I have seen some builds taking a point out of Wrath Consumption and putting it in Creeping Death. I don't think so. I don't think it's very good. Creeping Death is just not good in general. It's anti-synergistic with your dots, with Rapture windows, with everything else. I don't think it's very good. Creeping Death, and we'll talk about it a bit in the single target section if we haven't already, I think it's a relic of times past and needs to go. It is literally counterintuitive with your spender. Like, Rapture rewards you for dots being up and rapturing more in a Rapture window. Why would you want to speed them up and have? I mean, I get that. Yeah, okay, it could be a raw damage increase in certain spots, and I get the ideology behind it. How like let's make our dots tick faster to do more dot damage. But this feels like a relic of the times past. This feels like a relic from like Legion, when dots actually did damage. This might have been good. It was basically on the helm. It was the agony helm, right? This was good back then in a sense, and like, but it just doesn't fit the spec anymore. It's not synergistic. It's anti-synergistic, and just doesn't fit very well. So I would love to see it removed and replaced with another ability. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Rapid Contagion added to AF in general. Now, we'll talk more about this in a little while in the single target section for feedback, but this would be awesome. Whether it's here or replacing Deathbolt or somewhere else, Rapid Contagion would feel really good. It would be good in single target. It would be good in AoE. It would give you a spender outside of Seed and Rapture in certain parts of different places, certain fights, whatever. It costs 3 shards with a half-minute cooldown, but when you go into a pack, for example, cast your Seed, cast your Biotaint, get your dots rolling, and then pop Rapid Contagion and start spamming Rapture, dude, that's a huge damage profile. With Soul Tap beating more shards, that feels good. And that, to me, it feels like it sort of feeds into the dots matter version of AF, which I wouldn't mind back, and the whole community wants back so much more than I do. I want it back. I just accept reality for what it is. But TLDR, Creeping Death is not a very good option. At least to me, in my opinion. Now, the other part of this tree I wouldn't mind seeing changed is Antorian Plating and Wilfrid. So, Dark Lair, ever since like the BFA changes to UA not stacking anymore, not being a shard spender, and nerf to Deathbolt and making it a dot now, has been incredibly it's not good. Basically, when they ended up changing AF to a Malefic Rapture, version of AF, and foregoing the UA stacking to 5 and being your shard spender, Dark Lair stayed the same. Now, in the 5 UA stacking version, you could stack 5 UAs with your PS and everything, pop your Dark Lair, extend them all, and launch a massive Deathbolt, which didn't do dot damage before, which is one big burst of damage, but you can follow what I'm saying pretty easily. When they took away all the 5 UA stacking and removed dots, and removed Deathbolt, they gave you like Soul Rot and some dots, and you kept the same extension part of Dark Lair. They didn't buff the damage, they didn't do anything, right? So, while your dots are extended with Dark Lair, and it does add some value to Rapture with like, Soul Rot windows and PS stacking and all that, the fact of the matter is, like, you dump the majority of your damage in Raptures in your dot windows before the extension even becomes relevant. You might get an extra Rapture or 2 that's buffed, but it's not even that big of a deal. And Dark Lair's damage on its own is just horrendous. It is pitiful. It's like 3% of your damage, right? So, Antorian Plating, I think, is their attempt to make Dark Lair do more damage, which makes sense. Dark Lair damage increased by 3. I think it's 3 and 6 for each dot effect active. And it increases the duration too. It's cool. I don't mind that. But what I would like to see a lot more is a change to Antorian Plating. Make Dark Lairs, because you also have Wilfrids here, right? Make Dark Lairs I-Beam AoE. You can keep the actual damage amp. It's probably a good idea. But make it AoE. It would be a good cooldown in single target. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is if you're playing Malefic Wrath and things too. But it would be good in AoE. It'd be great in AoE, depending on tuning. It'd be cool, though. We've been asking for it for a long time. And with an ability like Antorian Plating trying to amplify Dark Lair, it's obvious they feel that it has some issues in damage, right? Make it AoE. And that would also add more relevancy to Wilfrid's in Mythic Plus, because right now, Wilfrid is terrible for Affliction. It doesn't do anything. Dark Lair doesn't do anything in the first place. So adding Wilfrid to it is like just... It doesn't do anything, right? But if you made I-Beam AoE, I'm not saying it would make Wilfrid's infinitely better, but it would make it a decent bit more competitive, I feel like, in AoE settings. It would add more relevancy to it. If I-Beam AoE, you can get your dots up quickly, pop your Dark Lair, blast everything down with I-Beam, similar to how Dark Lair was for Demonology in Legion, right? It used to actually AoE everything that had Doom on it when you summoned it in old Demonology. Have I-Beam AoE, change Antorian Plating, or just remove it, because in the end, I tested with it today and did no damage in single target. There needs to be some changes to Antorian Plating, but besides that, I'm pretty happy with this build. Creeping Death's not good. Needs some changes here. Wilfrid's is terrible for AF in its current form, with Dark Lair being the way that it is. But yeah, Sacrifice is terrible too. That's just, they've committed to this for some reason. They won't ever change it. Besides that, though, this build's pretty solid. I like it. The AoE version of AF is really, really fun and very cool. But I can't say the same about the single target version. Send help. So when it comes to the single target part of the tree, I don't feel as excited about it at all compared to the AOE part of the tree. So the build Rapture, whether you like it or hate it, we'll get to that in a little bit. Once again, it's there. Rapture into UA into instant cast corruption. We put a point in Nightfall here, 2 points in Pandemic Invocation, 2 points in Writhe because they separated Writhe and Siphon Life here. Obviously PS into Siphon Life. The first issue I think is here. And it's because of like Dark Glare being way over here. You'll grab PS, but I really don't want to put points into Sacrilash's Dark Strike to grab Dark Glare. I do think Dark Glare is probably needed for every version of AF. Whatever you think, I think Dark Glare is worthwhile at a 2-minute cooldown. It's still not very strong, but the fact of the matter is, 1 point for an ability like that is worthwhile, especially with the synergy that it brings with Malefic Wrath and things, which is, you know, a problem in itself. But number one, I would like to see this tree, Dark Glare tree, swapped with this tree. Dark Glare is like a universal thing every build wants, right? Like Infernal's here-ish for Demo, or for Destro, but it only has 3 nodes, not like 6 here, right? And for a Demo, Tyrant's right here. It's in a central kind of location, but Dark Glare is way over here, and every build has to go through here. I don't want to play Sacrilash in single target, but to get Dark Glare, I have to. Or I play Soul Swap. But unfortunately, Soul Swap is not very good. The shard cost is way too much. It doesn't do anything really. And while you can't, like, not having the ability to inhale your dots and exhale them on their target, like that spawns, you're going to have Agony at a low stat count. You're not going to have your PS or your Soul Rot rolling. If a Prio mob spawns, you want to move that around. It's just not very strong, unfortunately. So I wouldn't mind seeing a clause like that added to it. If you Soul Burned it, for example, you could like swap all your dots on one target to another one, maintaining the stacks, maintaining the damage amps on them. But this version of Soul Swap, unfortunately, is just not really worth taking, really in any scenario. I don't think it's not worth the point. So past there, we have our usual like the build on retail for the most part. Nightfall here for like Shadow Bolt, Drain Soul procs. Pandemic Invocations here, I'm not a huge fan of it. Once again, it's fine. It's better in single target than it is Mythic Plus and AOE, I think. But it's a talent. It's not an Azerite trait anymore, so there's some more relevancy to it here, right? Plus, it leads into Siphon Life and Drain Soul again. So we have Shadow's Embrace here. Single target damage increase, longer duration, 1 point in Soul Tap, again for like, you know, big shard, general, that kind of stuff, 2 points of Harvester of Souls. And then this is where things get interesting. 2 points in Writhe, we grab, or sorry, Withering Bolt. We grab Haunt here for the damage amp that it brings. And then we have Death Bolt. 3 shards, launches the bolt of the target, accumulating half the remaining dots, and deals it to them in a dot form. I don't even want to read it, it's too complicated. But like, Death Bolt in its old, I guess current PvP form, 3 shards, half-minute cooldown, into Death Dealer, spending a shard as a chance to make it cost no resources and be instant cast. And then 1 point in Soul Rot, 1 point in Malefic Wrath, which is the Malefic Wrath legendary from retail right now that is a pain to play. Then Deliberate Malice, and you have Calamitous Crescendo, which is your 2-piece and your 4-piece. Now, if you guys haven't followed here, there is a lot of juggling with this build. You can take 1 point out of Malefic Wrath and put it in like Pact of the Nathrezim, which is like a bit of a damage, or I guess dot increase duration-wise to your dots when you cast Death Bolts. Like, it's a bit more PS synergy, a bit more Soul Rot synergy where you're casting these in a Death Bolt window. But the thing is that you're also playing Decimating Bolt. You're also playing most likely the Dimensional Rift. And I'm trying to forego like Rift and Inquisitor's Gaze and Summon Jailer, but Decimating Bolt and Malefic Wrath are a playstyle now on retail, and they're pretty restrictive. Like, it's a pretty tight rotation when it comes to single target. It's not like Destro or Demo single target. If this buff falls on retail, you are in hell. It is hell trying to get this buff back up and bring this over into a build like this where you have Malefic Wrath. You have Decimating Bolt, Malefic Wrath, Death Bolt, Haunt, Siphon or Soul Rot, Dark Glare, Soul Tap, Shadow's Embrace stacks, Dot Maintenance and Agony, Corruption Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Pandemic Invocation management, Nightfall procs. What did I forget? 4-piece procs. I don't have that many fingers. It's like 15 different abilities. This build is like doing brain surgery in space. It seems like the premise behind it was trying to take a lot of like well-known abilities like Malefic Wrath, like Death Bolt, like the 2-piece and the 4-piece, like Pandemic Invocation, like Shadow's Embrace, and put them all in one build that was built around Rapture and Rapture windows. But there's no synergy with these talents, like besides Death Bolt and Decimating Bolt and Drain Soul with Malefic Wrath. But that's not even a good synergy. It's a pain to maintain kind of synergy, right? Yeah, like, this build is just incredibly convoluted. Let's take a look at it in combat, and then we'll talk a bit about it feedback-wise. Okay, so we're going to open. I also forgot about my dimensional rifts. We're just going to pop them when we can. Maybe we have time, maybe we don't. I'm going to open on my precast Haunt again, going into my UA, Agony, Corruption, Life and Life, Drain for Shadow's Embrace here. There's 1 stack. There's 2, there's 3. Phantom Singularity. We got a proc here, a Soul Rot. Let's Dark Lair this. Let's cast this actual Rapture. Let's Death Bolt here. Let's Decimating Bolt here. Let's cast this Haunt. We need 2 more stacks from Malefic Wrath here. We need a Soul Tap so we can Rapture again. Extend dots, Rapture. Siphon Lance Falling, catch that. Here's our big Drain Soul. There it is. Big Drain coming up. Still haven't cast a Rift yet. We'll do that in a second here. It takes 10 seconds to cast, though. Let's Rapture again. Try and cast a Rift here. Refresh Siphon Life. Cast Corruption. Catch our UA, or our Agony it's falling. Cast UA. Pop this. Get our Haunt back up here. Shadow's Embrace is fallen. Malefic Wrath fell as well. There's a proc. All right, let's try and get it back up again here. It's back up now to 3. All right, but Siphon Life's falling. We got to catch that. That's a little unfortunate. There's a proc there. We have Bolt coming up, and basically now we have 20 on our next Bolt window. That's okay. Haunt's falling here. Refresh that. Corruption fell. Catch that. There's Agony. Let's try and catch our Siphon Life here. We got a proc. Refresh UA a little early here. Why not? Let's Rapture from Malefic Wrath. Try and get this proc up a little bit here. 1, 2. Can't get 3 stacks. It's okay. We'll try for 3. We'll Drain. Dot's looking all right. We got a Death Bolt window coming up here. Let's refresh. Let's go Corruption. Siphon. Let's refresh our UA. Our Haunt's down. Let's do this. We should be okay. Malefic Wrath just fell. That's all right. We'll cast our Singularity. Cast our Soul Rot. Cast our Death Bolt. Cast Decimating Bolt. Agony's falling. We'll try and catch that. We'll Rapture again a bit here. No stacks of Malefic Wrath. We can Soul Tap for a Shard now. Siphon Lance falling. We can catch that too. We can catch Corruption. Unfortunately, Shadow's Embrace just fell. That's okay. We'll Haunt again. We'll Dude, you can't do this, man. You just can't do it. Like, there's literally no... You can't do it, man. It's literally impossible. Like, it's impossible. And this is the easier build. Imagine playing this without any dot extensions. Like, with this and this, and it's impossible. Imagine playing this with Creeping Death. So, yeah. Like I said, this build is just incredibly complicated for no real reason. Because, I mean... So, here's the thing. If Blizzard wants to keep this Malefic Rapture playstyle around, there is a lot that needs to be done in this part of the tree. Creeping Death is just anti-synergistic with Malefic Wrath. It's anti-synergistic with Malefic Rapture and Rapture windows. You want dots to last longer so you can Rapture more in them. It's literally anti-synergistic and like a relic of the past. This is a thing from like Legion that was good when dots actually dealt damage, but they don't do damage anymore. It's Rapture that does damage, or your Drain Souls. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I've been on the Rapture's okay train for a long time, but we're at a point where I feel like Blizz has tried, and like, once again, the lock trees look great for the most part. I'm not calling it to be out. I'm not saying Blizz messes up or anything, even though it is sort of messed up. We've tried to build around Rapture for so long. We've strayed so far from what Ath is to this. We've got like just like Malefic Wraths and Death Bolts. Like, what is it? Nobody wants to do Drain Soul damage as Affliction. Like, I don't want my filler to be 30% of my damage. I want my dots to be my damage, right? I get like Raptures up there too, but like this playstyle is like 20% Rapture damage, like 30% Drain Soul damage. Half your damage is in 2 spenders, and your dots even do anything, right? Like, I feel like we've tried so hard. I guess Blizz has tried so hard to commit to the Rapture playstyle and to make it work with like dots doing no damage, but giving you like Pandemic Invocation back for like dots applying and doing damage, and like having Creeping Death around, but it doesn't do anything, and having like Death Bolt come back, but it doesn't really do anything, right? It's just like there's so many abilities that just they've tried so hard to stretch Rapture just so far without just being like, okay, let's just make Unstable Affliction the spender again. The easiest fix to me here, I know this is a decently large change. We're at this point in alpha, like it's early on. I figured I'd bring it up. The best way, I think, to fix this jumble of abilities here is to honestly, like, just make Unstable Affliction a spender again. I know dots are a pain in the tune at times. I know if they're good in single target, they're ridiculous in AoE, but like, we have a lot of like actual like nodes in this tree that could maybe address that somehow. And I'm not the best person when it comes to making all that stuff all the time, but like, I mean, Death Bolt feels miserable. A great way to remove Death Bolt and make people happy is to just take it from here, put it back into the PvP tree, and pull Rapid Contagion out. For the next 20 seconds, all your dots do tick 30% faster. 3 shards, half a minute cooldown it would feel so much better, and it would sort of feed into like the dots matter thing, even though like you still have Malefic Wrath and you still have like Malefic Rapture, like, and yes, it would be anti-synergistic with like Malefic Wrath and things, but that's just the world we live in because we built this weird build of AF that doesn't even do anything with dots anymore, right? Like, your dots are there to increase your Rapture damage, your dots are there for Withering Bolt and things to increase your Drain Soul damage. They're support rules, they're not like actual dot rolls anymore, right? So like my number one suggestion for this build, or I guess like point of feedback, is like, if there's any possible chance for a minor Affliction overhaul to make Unstable Affliction our spender again, it needs to happen. Like, I know it's hard to tune, but it needs to happen. People are not, I'm saying this in the bottom of my heart because I want AF to be good. People are not going to like this version of AF at all. I've played it for 2.5 years and AF has been bad. If AF is good and people are forced to play this, oh dude, people are going to be so, it's not fun, right? Malefic Wrath and Decimating Bolt feel terrible, right? Like, they're not fun to play at all. Scuffing one Drain Soul with Malefic Wrath up and Decimating Bolt buffing it feels terrible. It is such a tedious playstyle, right? Plus you're building around like Shadow's Embrace stacks and Pandemic Invocation and Nightfall procs, hoping this procs with this, while also having portals to cast and death bolts to cast and maintaining your haunt. And what is even going on? Like, there's so much going on here. There's no sense of direction. So I feel like if they made Unstable Affliction the spender again, make it limited to 5, make it like cost a shard, it's okay. You've got Unstable Affliction as your prio single target spender. You've got Seed and So being in the form they are for AoE and things. UA is your single target spender, your prio spender. Seed and So are your AoE spenders. And you can even pull Rapid Contagion out of this part of the tree and put it here in the tree somewhere. Get rid of Death Bolt. Nobody wants this thing. Get it out of here. It's not good. It's not a fun playstyle. Get it out of here, right? Just do that. And like, I guarantee that version of AF is infinitely more fun and exciting than this. Because like, in the end, if you want to keep this playstyle with Rapture, we've broken our back, we've bent over backwards to try to make it work with like weird things like Malefic Wrath and Decimating Bolt and buffing Drain Soul damage and Pandemic Invocation. Like, it's become so much where it's like, it's not even AF anymore. This feels like great like AF, but why does this side feel good? Because you're playing Writhe and Biotank and Soul Flame and AC, and you're doing dot damage. That's why this side feels good. And then you go over here, it's like, oh, my Drain Soul's 30% of my damage, and Rapture's 20. What are my dots? They're like 20, because my pet's doing 10% too. It's just not fun. Like, all my excitement goes out of me when I go to the side of the tree, right? If I don't want to go back to the UA spender playstyle being like your main shard spender, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where to start with the side of the tree. Because like, Malefic Wrath needs to go. Creeping Death is just not good. It's anti-synergistic. It's a relic of the past. Realistically, I think Death Bolt playstyle is gonna be pretty subpar. It could be maybe okay. I'm not a huge fan of it. I would love to see Rapid Contagion back instead. Put this here and move this here and change these to work around this thing. That would be so much more exciting. And I mean, there might be a middle ground somewhere where you remove this, add that in place of Death Bolt, and maybe make people sort of happy with like a dot-esque kind of build, but I don't really know where to start with this side of the tree. I wish I did. I've sat here for hours, literally hours thinking about it, and I don't know where to start. 2-piece, 4-piece is nice. The Haunt Empowerment is really cool. Having this here is sick. And Torium Plating probably needs to be, AoE based, but like, I would move this tree with this tree, number 1. Move Creeping Death, cut Death Bolt, cut Malefic Wrath, and I don't know where else to go from there. Like, this part of the AF tree just needs an overhaul. And I honestly, with Rapture being our spender and knowing that dots won't do much damage, I don't have a good point of feedback to give on it, unless like they want to go back to UA being our spender. UA being our spender, I think legitimately fixes this issue here. But at the same time, it can cause other issues too. And I also want to say that when I mean UA being our spender, when I say that, it would obviously take a bit of an overhaul to this tree, right? Like this would be probably, Death Bolt can maybe stay, and it might actually be better than what it is now. But like, Malefic Wrath would go probably. Creeping Death might be able to stay. I mean, honestly, these abilities, like, this is still not fun, but it's still better with UA being our spender. This is better with UA being our spender. Malefic Wrath needs to go. They'd have to replace some nodes, but that's what I'm saying. I don't really know where else to go with it. I've been on the Rapture is okay train for a while. If given the option of having Rapture or UA, I'd say UA. But just looking at this side of the tree, And it's not a Blizz's bad thing. It's not. Blizz has done a great job of Warlock trees. It's just like we've come so far from where AF was a few expansions ago, even like an expansion and a half ago with dot damage. And I think it's all because we're just trying to work around Malefic Rapture. And in the end, the answer's right in front of us. Just remove it. Put UA right here. So yeah, that should about wrap it up. Thanks for watching, guys. Now, I want to say right now, I don't want this video to come off as like what seems like I'm bashing Blizz for the single target part of the AF tree, because I'm not. Like, there's a lot of decent abilities in there. There's some good options, but I'm passionate about it, and I want AF to be good. We've had a whole expansion, barring the first patch, for a month and a half where AF has not been good at all. And I think a lot of that is based around Rapture and just the fact that dots don't do damage, and it's become hard to tune AF around Rapture, and these playstyles that are coming out of it, like Malefic Wrath and just these other Decimating Bolt stuff, is not fun to play. That's the thing, right? Like, yeah, UA was our shard spender in BFA, and it wasn't as fun in dungeons and things. That's because Seed was terrible. So the Siege was not good. It was one extra Seed and did no damage. If so the Seed stays the way that it is now, damage-wise and Seed-wise, this build is so much fun to play. It's probably the most fun version of AF we've seen in a long time, since Legion, probably. But the fact of the matter is that with these Drain Soul, Malefic Wrath, Decimating Bolts, Pandemic Invocation, Shadows Embrace playstyles around, I think it's just subpar. And hopefully we're in alpha at a point early enough where it can maybe be addressed, but we'll see where it goes. The AoE side of the tree, though, the AoE side is very cool. Soul Flame, Vile Taint, Agony Spreading, Sow the Seeds amps, Haunt, 20% huge AoE amp, Dark Lair feeling good. That side of the tree feels super, super good. Soul Rot, DSS, I'm pumped and excited for that. So maybe we can end in a middle ground somewhere. We'll see. But Affliction and Mythic Plus, at least in dungeons, the initial like design of it, permaslows, looks like it could be really, really strong heading into Dragonflight. And I guess, I don't know, Mythic Plus in general. So now, if I missed anything in this video, guys, or any comments, suggestions, questions, drop them down below in the comment section, and I will be sure to get back to you. There might be a whole lot. Let me know what you guys think about the current state of AF on Alpha, because like there's a lot of feedback that was taken from the comment section last expansion that ended up being implemented in things through feedback docs and all that. It's like legitimately, I'm looking for feedback on the AF side. It's not often that I feel like I had nothing to say about feedback for certain talents. I just don't. I'm stumped. I think it is a core issue with Rapture at this point, and it just needs to sort of be addressed from the head down. Whatever. But either way, yeah, and when you're down there, be sure to smash the like and sub buttons. It helps out a ton. So, yeah, and I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons before we end the video. Thank you a million times, guys, for all support on Patreon. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. With all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you're looking for the Destro or Demo videos, those should be coming out over the next days as well. And yeah, I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.